Welcome back to the Roger Hedgecock Show here at the Aramco Group studio at UTTV. Lots of outrage in Australia over the death a couple of days ago in Duncan, Oklahoma, of Christopher Lane, a baseball player, college student who was here to attend college, Australian, here in Oklahoma to attend college, and gunned down, shot in the back. A car whizzed by, shot him in the back. He dies at the roadside. A horrific 911 call that we played earlier in the program. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the legal and political implications coming out of this with Sezen Oygar, who's back. Thank you very much for coming back. And Alan Bloom, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
You're a criminal defense attorney. Alan, what does this case tell you?
That stupidity and maturity and all sorts of the things that go into the heinous events of crimes and the terrible things of crimes that I see and have seen for the last 38 years exist not just in our California or San Diego, but across our country.
Small town.
Small town. It's just amazing. It's just astounding that this can happen. And the outrage, the coup de grace outrage here is the fact that it was for boredom, and you're dealing with kids who are apparently just doing it out of gang initiation or some sort of involvement because they have nothing else to do. You've talked about it earlier and said it has a lot to do about race. I really don't think race is the issue. I think maturity is the issue. I'm not, this can happen to somebody who is mature too, and there can be obviously lots of folks who are charged with crimes and commit crimes who are mature, but this particular offense to me strikes me as this stupidity that goes with kids who just are lost. And
all right, we're going to develop that. Sezen, we had the racist tweets, though, that were posted by at least one of these guys. Well, I think we can show those again. That
90% of white.
You get back into the 90% of white people are
nasty. Hashtag hate them. I mean, I think you can almost, and I hate to say, you can almost understand this better if this is a racial hate crime versus just children who are bored and they wanted something to do, so they're going to go target the next guy who's running down the street and shoot him in the back. That, I can't put my head around that. That is completely senseless. It is, what's wrong with our society if we're raising teenagers that are just going to do that? On the other hand, what's wrong with our society if race is still this big of an issue? I mean, I don't think you can escape it.
It's shocking, isn't it?
It is shocking. I mean, 3 days before this crime happened, he put that tweet out there. And the parallels, it's so sad, but the parallels between this case and George Zimmerman, with the unfortunate,
Trayvon Martin.
I mean, it's such an unfortunate death. And I mean, 17-year-old, unarmed, and yes, he was stalked by George Zimmerman. This case, I believe Mr. Lane was 22, I believe he was, unarmed, and he was also stalked by a group of teenagers. It is completely senseless, and I think that is one way that at least we can, explore this if this really is a racial issue. Let
me bring in the gang issue for both of you, because later that day, and this is where the police got him, because this Mr. Johnson called the police. They were in the parking lot next to his house. They were trying to recruit, according to him, trying to recruit his son to be in this gang. In Duncan, Oklahoma, there are gangs. I mean, this has got to be shocking to people.
Knew?
Well, we have a gunslinger mentality in this country, Roger. You've traveled around the world. You've seen different cultures and so forth. And people don't want to say that guns have directly to do with this, and it's true. You put a gun down there, it's not going to make somebody pick it up and commit the crime. The gun doesn't commit the crime, the person commits the crime.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with that. But the fact of it is, the mentality in this country is different than in a lot of places. There are countries that have greater murder rates and so forth, but they're in a civil war. There's a drug cartel going on. Of the countries that are just sort of like relatively peaceful and settled supposedly as we are, we clearly have the highest murder rate of any place.
Well, there's no question, but I saw an interesting statistic on this the other day. If you took out Detroit, Chicago, New York, LA, and then you looked at the murder rate in the whole rest of the country, absent those urban centers, we're like 159th on that list, although we're like #1 if you put those cities in. So there is something about not only the gun culture, but the gang culture. Chicago has a shocking number of people killed. 400 or 500 so far this year.
And some of the most strict gun laws in the country.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying I have the solution and can put my finger on it, but I do see the difference in the cultural aspect of it and the availability of the gangs, and particularly dealing with kids with guns. You said that you didn't think it was illegal for this kid to have a gun because he was hiding it. I went on the net earlier today and looked at Oklahoma and Georgia law, because here's this other kid in the grammar school who was stopped. And how come a kid? Can we not agree that somebody, we just don't need machine guns and 600 rounds of ammunition? I mean, we're going to go deer hunting.
Gun.
AK-47 is a very close to
assault
that.
rifle.
Semi-automatic rifle.
But actually, in Georgia
One
and in
bullet, one pull.
actually in Georgia and Oklahoma, it's not illegal to have a fully automatic. It has
if
to
you
be,
have a federal license.
that's right. It has to be.
Big distinction.
But the state doesn't make it illegal. The point of it is, okay, so you have boom, boom, boom. Do we really need that? So I still think that's part of, if you're going to look at this kind of in a global way and try to find something to do with it, the amount of guns and availability of guns has to be part of the picture.
Well, it does, but even if you go to that, okay, let's limit magazine capacity. This death would not have been prevented.
This one wouldn't.
A .22 caliber revolver was
Probably the most common thing you can
most common thing. That's not restricted. That's like something that people shoot squirrels with.
Yeah.
That is not, you know. Yes, it's a weapon, but it's not.
So let
an
me
assault
let me
rifle.
take this then, because I like what both of you are saying. Let me take this up with you, Alan, and we'll get Sezen to comment. If in Chicago you have the highest murder rate caused by apparently gang warfare, Rahm Emanuel's talked about this a lot, and you have the strictest gun control laws. There's no gun shops in Chicago at all. You cannot buy a gun in Chicago. There are no gun ranges in Chicago. It's a verboten completely to have a gun. They even tried to outlaw guns in your home, a revolver in your home, for crying out loud. That was overturned by the Supreme Court.
Right.
So there's obviously a mismatch here. If we had all the gun control laws in the world, wouldn't we still have this gang warfare?
Yeah, there's no single solution to
Okay.
this. Of course there can't be. First of all, the mere fact that you have guns doesn't mean that you should be crazy enough to go out and on a lark decide to shoot someone.
Right.
I'm not saying the knee-jerk response that if you get rid of every gun, you're going to get rid of every problem. I don't think so, but I definitely think it's part of the picture. You have maturity. You have the issue of what this kid.
I want to get
you know
back
why
to,
kids
but
get
I want to
to
get back to
gangs?
racism. I want to get back to racism.
Why
Let
do
me
kids
just-
go into gangs? They go into
Why?
gangs because they're on the street, because their life is crap. There's nothing for them. So the thing that they turn to, the thing that gives them their brotherhood, that gives them their strength, is the like group of people who they say, I'm cool, you want to be cool, you can hang with me, and I'll take care of you.
Sezen.
In 2008, we had over 2,900 children and teens that were killed as a result of gun-related deaths. That's an astounding figure. But like you're saying, in Chicago, you're not getting the guns in Illinois. People are bringing them from other states, bringing them into one of the most
Sure.
restrict states. So you would need to have some sort of federal type legislation, but everything that has been proposed, it's not reasonable. The restrictions that they're trying to to limit assault weapons based off of cosmetic features, it's not reasonable. So I don't know exactly where you go, but I think you need to look at gun control versus the recidivism. Edwards, one of the teens, the 15-year-old who actually shot Mr. Lane,
Right.
his mom was in and out of jail since 1994. She had larceny charges,
That's the
larceny
whole-
convictions, exactly.
I see it all the time in my practice.
Distribution of cocaine. And so that is the problem. It's not attacking an inanimate object. That gun doesn't, load itself. It's the person that doesn't, and it's really evaluating the home, the environment, and these children, unfortunately, are products of that environment.
Yeah, I represent kids, and over 38 years have represented a number of folks, more than I would like to admit, that have been exactly in this situation. A young person killing somebody else, pull her off the street in La Jolla, stuffed her into a trunk of a car, drove her around, and ended up killing her. Absolutely out of his mind on PCP. The horrendous stuff in his life, which didn't come out till much later, the existence he had, he grew up. One of the early memories he has is being placed in a bed of blood where his father had killed his mother, and this is where he was left that night. I mean, the story starts early. We spent more on that trial, both prosecuting and defending him, than had ever been spent in his life in trying to deal with this kid on the way coming up. So Sezen is absolutely right. It's not just an inanimate object. It's a picture and culture that goes with it.
The culture, which we can spend all day talking about that. You guys have been great. We're going to have you back. Sezen, Alan, thanks so much. I appreciate your
pleasure.
Thank you,
time
Roger.
today. Thank you.